It's only November 4th, but already just this month, 4 more Northeast Indiana poultry farms are quarantining their flocks. They may be infected with bird flu.
If they are sick, that brings the total number of ongoing bird flu cases in Indiana to 13. WIN 15's Allie McKibben spoke with the state's Board of Animal Health earlier today. What are the next steps for these farms, Allie?
Right now, samples from each poultry farm are being tested at the USDA's headquarters. Despite the government shutdown, the agency is partially open, and farmers should know in 4 to 7 days whether or not their flock is infected. And if these 3 farms are bird flu positive, more than 46,000 birds will be killed, known as depopulation. They joined the estimated 85,000 Indiana chickens and ducks that have already been depopulated since mid-October. At this moment, LaGrange and Elkhart counties are the only areas where bird flu has been confirmed in the state. Indiana has not had a bird flu case since the beginning of May. Experts do not know why the outbreak is concentrated in those counties or even how it's spreading, but they suspect the disease is reemerging because its carriers, wild birds, are migrating.
The poultry farmers work really, really hard to keep that space disease-free and bacteria and virus-free as much as they can to keep the birds healthy. And they do a lot of things like changing their shoes and their clothes before they go in and out of the buildings. But even something as simple as turning on the ventilation fans because they need fresh air could pull some of that viral material into the space where the birds are going to inhale it.
Farmers are being proactive to prevent the spread. They are constantly sanitizing themselves and the farm, limiting visitors and deterring wild birds from flying around their property. The Board of Animal Health is monitoring what they call control areas, which are surrounding the afflicted farms, ordering farms in Elkhart, LaGrange, and Noble counties to test their flocks so they can catch the disease before it spreads to any more farms. Allie McKibben, WIN 15 News.
Ethiopia has confirmed the death of 3 people who had contracted the Marburg virus. The country's health ministry said 3 additional fatalities were being investigated for a possible connection to the disease. This announcement comes after Ethiopian authorities declared the Marburg outbreak on Friday. It was reported in the Omo region, an area neighboring South Sudan. Ethiopian Health Minister Megdes Daba said the government had conducted tests in 17 suspected cases in the country's south. In addition, 129 people who were in contact with the confirmed cases have been isolated and are being monitored. Marburg is a highly contagious hemorrhagic virus from the same family as Ebola. The Marburg virus originates in fruit bats and spreads between people through close contact with bodily fluids or contaminated surfaces. Symptoms include fever, muscle pains, diarrhea and vomiting.
A ship carrying nearly 3,000 cattle has been stranded at sea for 55 days, sparking concerns over animal welfare. The vessel, the Spiridon II, set sail from Uruguay to Turkey on September 20th, but faced a major setback when Turkish authorities denied entry due to discrepancies in cattle eartag records. This has left the ship unable to offload its cargo and stranded in the area, with animal welfare organizations expressing growing worries about the animals on board. The Animal Welfare Foundation, based in Germany, has reported that at least 58 cattle have died. The charity's statement highlights the plight of the animals, describing them as pregnant heifers and calling for immediate action from Turkish authorities to prevent further suffering. According to the charity, 140 heifers gave birth, and 50 newborn calves were detected, but their status is uncertain. The charity's project manager, Dr. Maria Bodasana, emphasized the urgency of the situation, stating that the animals are already weakened after the long journey and that every further delay means massive suffering. The Spiridon II, primarily transporting animals from South America to the Middle East, no longer has a permit to load animals in European ports, according to the Animal Welfare Foundation. The charity has appealed to the European Commission for intervention, urging them to take diplomatic and technical steps to enable the immediate unloading of the surviving cattle. Even if only properly identified animals could be unloaded initially, it would alleviate overcrowding and provide better access to limited resources for the remaining animals. This situation raises important questions about international maritime regulations and animal welfare standards, inviting discussion and debate on the best course of action to ensure the well-being of these cattle.
A tragic bus accident has claimed the lives of 45 Indian pilgrims in Saudi Arabia near Medina. Most of the pilgrims on board the ill-fated bus were from Hyderabad, India. The The bus carrying 46 people collided with a diesel tanker, resulting in a massive fire that engulfed the vehicle. Only one person survived the accident and is currently hospitalized.
A total of 54 people from Hyderabad went through 4 different agencies. At the time of the accident, all of them were in the bus route of 46 persons. Only one survived. Of the 54 people, 46 were traveling by bus, 4 stayed back in Mecca, and another 4 left in a private car. These 8 people are reported to be safe.
Grief hangs heavy for the families of the victims of the tragic accident, as some of them still await for any word on their loved ones who died in the deadly bus crash early in the morning.
चार मेंबर है, चार मेरे भाई है, बड़े भाई है, मोहम्मद मंजूर, वालदा है, शौकत बेगम, भाभी है, फरीन बेगम और जाहिन है भतीजी.
While another individual says that in one night, 18 members of his family spanning 3 generations were gone, the Telangana government has announced an ex gratia of 5 lakh rupees each to the families of the victims who died in the bus accident. The state cabinet took the decision of providing ex gratia to the bereaved families in the meeting held at the secretariat today. Now, according to authorities, a total of 54 people from Hyderabad went through 4 different agencies for the pilgrimage. At the time of the accident, 46 of them were in the bus and the remaining people took private cars. The condition of the only survivor, known as Shoaib, is yet to be known. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was saddened by the accident. In a post on social media, he said his thoughts are with the families who have lost their loved ones. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said that he was deeply shocked by the accident. In a post on social media, he said the Indian Embassy in Riyadh and the consulate in Jeddah are extending their fullest support to all affected families. Following the accident, the Consulate General of India in Jeddah announced that a 24/7 control room and an emergency helpline have been activated to assist relatives and coordinate emergency responses. Tiny machines diving through human veins, a new frontier where magnets, medicine and microengineering collide. When internal blockages threaten survival, speed and accuracy are everything. Now, a revolutionary new approach is set to turn every blood vessel into a navigable waterway. Here's a report.
They are smaller than a grain of sand. They move with the precision of a guided missile, and they might reshape the future of how we deliver life-saving drugs inside the human body. These magnetic micro-robots, engineered by researchers at ETH Zurich, are part machine, part miracle. Their mission is simple: carry medicine exactly where it's needed without letting it waste or wander through the rest of the body. Right now, stroke treatment is a race against time. A clot blocks a blood vessel. Brain cells begin to die. Doctors inject drugs to dissolve the blockage. But those drugs don't travel with purpose, they spread everywhere. To make sure enough of the medicine reaches the clot, doctors must give a high dose, and that can lead to dangerous side effects, including internal bleeding. A life-saving drug becomes a balancing act. This is where the micro-robots step in. Guided by magnetic fields, they can swim through blood vessels and steer like underwater drones. They can be directed to move upstream, dodge obstacles, turn corners, and finally arrive at the blocked vessel. Once they reach the clot, they drop their tiny cargo, powerful drugs delivered exactly where the fight is. But this is still the beginning. The technology is in experimental stages, tested in lab conditions, and models that mimic the flow of human blood. Researchers are optimistic, but they emphasize one thing clearly. These micro-robots need more testing, more validation, and rigorous checks before they can be used in real patients.
Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has today unveiled what she describes as the toughest package of asylum curbs in modern times, and it's causing a bit of a stir here in Westminster. And the main elements of it which have come out are a big tightening of the rules around asylum applications in this country. And Shabana Mahmood says that she wants to do 2 things, essentially speed up deportations of people with no right to be here but also deter those small boat crossings coming over the channel in the first place. And there's a whole smorgasbord of restrictions which the Home Secretary is laying out. Some of the ones which are causing the biggest ruffling of feathers are increasing the time period from when refugees can get permanent status in this country from 5 years and quadrupling it all the way to 20 years. So someone who comes across the channel, has their asylum claim accepted, will have to wait 20 years before they can actually get permanent settled status. And in that time, if the country where they've come from is declared safe by the Home Office, they'll have to return back to that country. The second thing is this contribution mechanism, which we broke exclusively in the Sun newspaper, which is that migrants will be required to pay towards the costs of their hotel, any other accommodation, if they have assets. The Home Office is increasingly concerned that many of the people who are being put up in hotels at taxpayers' expense actually do have wealth, either be it cars or e-bikes or even jewelry. And so they want to basically seize these assets from asylum seekers, sell them to make money, and put that towards the eye-watering costs on the taxpayer for their accommodation and other subsidies. And then what we've had today, which has come out in the document, which is causing a lot of contention, is that for the first time, families who have failed their asylum claims will be deported, because at the moment, families really are not prioritized at all for deportation. In fact, even if they fail their asylum claims, if there is a child involved, it's very, very difficult to return to their home country. So what Shabana Mahmood wants to do is actually now start fast-tracking families for deportation. And this is going to affect hundreds of families who are currently in the UK with no right to be here. But because there's a child involved, it's very difficult to deport them. So the legislation will change that. A couple of other bits is that they want to increase the payments for migrants that go voluntarily. At the moment, we do give migrants up to £3,000 if they decide to leave of their own volition, because it is just quite hard to deport them. They're going to trial increasing that beyond £3,000. And they said, actually, while it might be quite uncomfortable, the idea of sending migrants off with golden goodbyes, actually, it's more cost effective for the taxpayer who is paying tens of thousands of pounds to keep them up in hotels or accommodation. So that's the thrust of the announcement. And there's really two political, I think, traps for Shabana Mahmood. The first is that she's talking tough at the moment, but I think it is now incumbent on her to really deliver. And what we can't have is over-promising but under-delivering, because this illegal immigration issue really cuts to the heart of whether Labour has done any chance of being re-elected in 4 years' time. Clearly, the small boats issue has been so visible, dogged the Tory government for many years, saw them ousted. Labour came in with a promise to get to grips with this, and at the moment it's got worse on their watch. All the while, Nigel Farage is stealing a march in the polls, largely due to his hardline stance on illegal immigration. So delivery is something which Shabana Mahmood is really going to have to get to grips with now in what has been quite an unyieldy Home Office at past. And then she's clearly ruffling feathers with people in her own ranks. Lots of Labour MPs, even before the statement came out this afternoon, was saying that this is an exercise in performative cruelty and that actually we should be more welcoming to asylum seekers. Well, the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have come out today really trying to make the almost compassionate case for asylum controls, saying that if we do not get to grips with the asylum system in this country, then many people will lose faith in having an asylum system at all, because many people feel like it's taking them for a ride and that it is clearly broken and acting in an unfair manner. So she needs to be able to convince her party, who, let's remember, for the past year have been in pretty rebellious mood. Many of them now are unhappy with the direction of the government. She needs to convince the party that this is something which they can stomach, so that when the vote comes, because most of this is going to legislation, they get behind her, and actually they get behind her asylum reforms. And that sell to her backbenchers is going to be crucial in terms of the party management and actually whether or not any of this stands a chance in the long run.
Estamos We're here today at the Global Climate March. Women, youths, indigenous peoples, riverine communities and quilombolas are united to demand social justice and the demarcation of indigenous lands. Our land and our forest are not commodities. Respect nature and the peoples who live in the forest. Demarcation now.
Standoff between thousands of protesters and police in Mexico City. What began as a peaceful Gen Z-led demonstration that drew people of all ages who are outraged at the Mexican president's inability to tackle rampant security issues around the country turned violent. Hundreds of people have been injured from both sides. Mexico's security chief says Saturday's protests turned into chaos after a group of hooded individuals became violent.
I would like the government to stop being so permissive with crime and drug trafficking, to control them, and to stop extorting people.
The protests come 2 weeks after the mayor of Uruapan, Carlos Manzo, was killed while attending a Day of the Dead festival on November 1st. Reportedly, Mr. Manzo was targeted for criticising President Claudia Sheinbaum's government and for declaring war on the cartels, even promising to reward police officers who killed cartel hitmen.
We are marching for Carlos Manzo, for the vile murder of Carlos Manzo, because we want justice for all those who have lost their lives and their property at the hands of criminals.
We cannot be in the hands of a country ruled by crime. No more.
President Sheinbaum's administration called the rallies inorganic and a paid campaign organised by the opposition.
This is one of the most corrupt governments we've ever had, a narco government that has completely given in.
Sheinbaum was elected president in June 2024 to serve a 6-year term, and according to national polls, she maintained a 70% approval rating in her first year. But if the anger seen on the streets is any indication, and if protesters sustain their momentum, her grip on office may be less secure. Christina Šimić, TRT World.
Back here in the U.S., protests are intensifying across North Carolina. Demonstrators gathered in Charlotte and Raleigh over the weekend as the Trump administration launched a sweeping and unannounced immigration enforcement surge across North Carolina's largest cities. Crowds gathered late Friday and grew through Sunday with chants against deportations and carrying out signs denouncing what they called heavy-handed tactics by federal agents.
Border Patrol being here is really going to affect how we live on a day-to-day basis, you know, we're going to be living in fear, constant fear that one day one of us might not come home and,
Officials confirmed that at least 81 people were arrested during a 5-hour window early on in the operation. The Department of Homeland Security said the mission was aimed at removing public safety threats, part of a broader push by President Donald Trump to expand immigration enforcement in Democratic-led cities.
We don't need immigration and custom enforcement coming into Charlotte, disrupting our city, creating fear in our city and workplace, trying to divide our community and to make Charlotte a less safe place.
But the scale and visibility of the raid stunned residents. Across Charlotte's east side, home to many Hispanic and immigrant families, shops remained closed, street vendors vanished, and normally busy commercial strips fell unusually quiet. Community groups describe seeing federal vehicles moving through neighborhoods, agents stationed outside small businesses, and increased traffic stops by Border Patrol and ICE since Friday. One of the most striking moments captured on video showed agents pulling over vehicles, then smashing the windows of a red pickup truck during a stop. The driver was pulled out and handcuffed before later being released. A local official says such images had heightened fears in communities where many residents have lived for decades.
I mean, the impact it's having on us is that a lot of people are afraid to go outside. I've been in contact with people a lot of friends and family and acquaintances who say that they're not going out. They're having their kids who are citizens go and pick up their clothes and food for them.
Charlotte's mayor and other local officials issued a joint statement calling the operation unnecessary and warning it would fuel fear among families already shaken by previous raids in other U.S. cities. They urged residents to remain calm and document any concerning behavior by agents. The operation, which federal officials have dubbed Charlotte's Web, is the latest in a series of enforcement surges launched this year in cities including Chicago, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. DHS officials insist the deployments are designed to target criminals, citing recent cases of violent crimes, though city data shows overall crime has fallen this year. Now, Charlotte is home to nearly 1 million people and over 150,000 foreign-born residents. It has become one of the most fastest growing and diverse metropolises in the Southeast. And the sudden arrival of federal agents has triggered business closures, community rights trainings, and mounting concern about how long the operation will in fact continue.
It's an uphill battle, but it's a battle that needs to be had, and I'm very happy to see the energy and the amount of people who are out here. And we're going to win. I'm confident we will.
For now, federal officials have not said when the surge will end or where it may expand to next, leaving residents bracing for further arrest as the week begins.
The Pacific Rim is burning. Japan and China are now locked in a deadly game of brinkmanship. The lines are drawn in the Taiwan Strait. A single spark could ignite total war. Our next story takes a close look at how Taiwan, the only country to suffer from the Tokyo and Beijing escalation, are accelerating towards a flashpoint that could destroy the global order.
The skies are now battlegrounds. Japan scrambled combat jets after spotting a suspected Chinese drone, an eye in the sky skirting perilously close to Taiwan's airspace. The gloves are off. Diplomatic niceties have been jettisoned. China is escalating the pressure, turning the pressure on Tokyo. China's fierce response was immediate. It has issued a stern travel warning for its citizens against visiting Japan and a blistering warning to Takaichi, warning her not to play with fire.
We urge Japan to act responsibly toward history and bilateral relations by ceasing to cross the line and play with fire, retracting erroneous words and deeds, and genuinely translating its commitments to China into concrete actions.
The stakes have soared. Japan is now openly debating hosting US nuclear weapons, a seismic shift from its post-war pacifism. The island nation that once bore the devastation of atomic bombs is now considering becoming a nuclear host. For Tokyo, it's a shield. For Beijing, it's a red line escalation. Behind the rising tensions, efforts are now on containment. Tokyo has rushed a senior envoy to try to ease tensions with Beijing as stock markets in both countries fell. Chinese airlines have begun offering free refunds to citizens who cancel flights to or from Japan before December 31st.
My personal view is that since the government has said to avoid to Japan, then it's best to go less.
The words from Japan's PM Takaichi are extremely unreasonable. That's me being polite.
The specter of a nuclear-armed, remilitarized Japan is now a terrifying reality, driven by the clear and present danger posed by Beijing's massive military expansion. The time for caution is over. the countdown to a regional confrontation has begun.
I hear they're doing that, and that's okay with me. They're passing legislation, or the Republicans are putting in legislation that very tough. It's sanctioning, etc., on any country doing business with Russia. They may add Iran to that, as you know. I suggested it. So any country that does business with Russia will be very severely sanctioned. We may add Iran to the formula. Yeah.
Hey folks, so I'm in Iran's capital, Tehran, and of course there's a lot of tension right now between Iran and the Trump administration. Some even fear that there could be another armed confrontation. I spoke with one of Iran's top officials, the Deputy Foreign Minister, Saeed Khatibzadeh, and he told me Iran's position.
The nuclear program, the peaceful nuclear program, is intact as we are speaking, yes. They have attacked, they have ruined many of our infrastructure, machineries, buildings, but the program is very much based on our indigenous knowledge, very much spread across our country, which is a huge country, 90 million people, 1,600,000 square meter country. And this country is not a country that you can bomb and then think that you are going to ruin everything. This is a science, and this is a knowledge, and this is a know-how that we actually possess, and we are going to be protecting that. A battle of repair and recovery started the moment that ceasefire happened. The battle of repair and recovery happened in Tel Aviv by receiving thousands of shipments full of military equipment from United States and NATO members. And also we started our battle of repair and recovery. Our aim was to prevent another war. The other side, aim was to being prepared for another war. So we think that any means of defense, legitimate means of defense, should be boosted by Iran, because no country on earth compromises on its national security, and Iran is not an exception.